Hello and welcome. Someone in the comments said that I'm not looking very brand new, or something like that, old and worn out. Well, it's quite hard work, you know this. And I have just had a fairly major operation, which I didn't think is of as such. But in the recovery process, I'm realizing it was a little bit more serious than I thought it was. Anyway, I'm recovering well. Thank you for asking about that, those that have. And I did go to see the surgeon this time last week. He said, you know, it takes a little time to heal. This open surgery, cutting through the abdominal wall and such like, these bodies of ours, then take some time to repair, to heal. And one shouldn't immediately go walking a long way, carrying a lot of stuff, as I did quite soon after the surgery. So I left it a week. Maybe I should have left it longer. But saying that, all is good now, and I'm feeling more sprightly physically by the day. Someone also commented that I'm dreary and miserable, which is interesting. And thank you for that. I take it as a compliment. I do try to be as dreary and miserable as possible. No, I try to be happy. We should try and establish happiness, because we cannot really develop good states of samadhi in our meditation practice if we're not firstly content. And this, as I've mentioned many times before, is what leads to happiness. Not of the laughing and just superficial form of happiness, momentary, at the punchline of a joke or some entertainment we're watching, but a general sense of contentment in our lives, that we're doing all we can to live as well as we can. And the best way to establish this is, of course, keeping our precepts firstly, because this gives us nothing too much to worry about in the past or be concerned about in the future. Because not only are we given the gift of fearlessness to others by keeping precepts, which can be summed up in one as doing no harm, not only are we giving that gift to others, we are doing no harm to ourselves. So we have less to be concerned about. And that helps us bring everything into the present moment. Another way to bring our conscious awareness and our attention into the present moment is to try and be ever mindful, practice sati, mindfulness of the body. And one way we do that is with the breath. So continually reflecting on this and bringing ourselves into the body rather than being pulled out via our senses of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and all of the thoughts that are stimulated as a result of that, rather than being pulled out, to be more introspective, looking inside to the emotions as they arise in the mind and the physical feelings as they arise in the body, seeing them for what they are, temporary, they are impermanent. Anicca is the Pali word. Sometimes they are dukkha, suffering. Sometimes they are unsatisfactory, like that. But even those feelings that are good, that are pleasant, that are pleasurable, even those emotions that we can see as happiness, temporary happiness, or even longer happiness, enjoying a holiday, enjoying a nice long walk in the countryside, pleasant views. These are good in that moment, but of course also impermanent in that they will soon come to an end. So whilst we can still appreciate a sunset on a beach or a beautiful mountain vista, we can enjoy a nice movie or reading a book, or enjoy a beautiful supper, something like that, in the company of friends, as long as we're not too attached to that, then we're enjoying it in the right way for the contentment it brings in that moment, but knowing that this also will not last, because all that we hold dear we will be parted from. And of course, most of these things, all of these things, in fact, including our bodies, are out of our control, are anatta, we translate as not self, and this is no more evident than in the progress of age in our bodies. Certainly, in this last few years, as I've been practicing, I've been fortunate to be fit and healthy, and all but a couple of accidents or injuries that I've had have been able to carry on normally in my practice, and only recently has there been a little bit of an interruption, mainly to the long walking pindapata, arms round in the morning, that has maybe just changed the way I practiced for a few weeks or so, but in a way has been a very good reminder for me also of this, anatta. We're not in control of our bodies, but also that we are subject to aging, sickness and death. So I'm not really that dreary in my heart. I don't feel miserable. I feel quite content, but I'm also fully aware and I understand that as I age, like all of us, then perhaps I will need to get more assistance when I go on Pindapat or not walk so far. Maybe I will need to, in the future, have more medicine or whatever to keep me going. I don't know. We do not know. Maybe we die tomorrow. We can only be sure as far as this next breath. And this is something as monks we contemplate regularly. I'd like to talk about some of your questions and comments now, as that was my intention when I sat down here. Someone also said, nice kettle. I don't know where some of these comments are coming from. The kettle's not there now. It's over there somewhere. But it's just a kettle. We're allowed to, as monks, help ourselves to water. Everything else has to be offered. So water's quite good, and we can't cook or boil things, but I think we're supposed to have our hot water in a flask, something like that. I cheat a little. If there's an electric kettle which someone offered me in the last place when I was here, I do use that to boil water, and I can make black coffee with that, or black tea, which is classed as a 7-day tonic, so it's an allowable. And on one of these points, the next question is about Vinaya. Now, Vinaya is really relevant just to the monks and nuns, although some of it is applicable to lay people in their relationship and interaction with the sangha. And there's a useful book, if you look it up, a guide to the Bhikkhu's rules for lay people, something like that. It's a useful short booklet to help lay people know what to do when they're offering to monks, for instance, the sangha, when they go to visit the sangha in a temple, in a monastery. And throughout the world they should be more or less similar in terms of how you go about these activities, offering dana, etc. Because we all follow this same Vinaya, part of the Tripitaka, the 3 collections, the 3 baskets, the scriptures of Buddhism. The first, the Vinaya Pitaka, then the Sutta Pitaka, and then the Abhidharma. My practice, my life is primarily Vinaya Pitaka, Sutta Pitaka, not so much Abhidharma. You'll find there are a lot of monks who it's mainly Sutta Pitaka, Abhidharma. It doesn't mean that they're not keeping all of the Bhikkhu rules, of which there are 227 in the Vinaya, but maybe some of the rest of the Vinaya is interpreted differently, not perhaps so much relied upon. And some of even the 227 rules, there are allowances and flexibilities and different interpretations throughout all of these varying traditions throughout the world. But it is a good central core structure to both our practice and the way we behave and live. whether alone or in a monastery with a sangha. So in this particular question about Vinaya, how much individual hospitality are you allowed? Okay, well that's, for example, good. For example, can you be invited to a non-Buddhist country by a lay disciple and stay for some time at his house with his wife and daughter? Can a lay disciple take you to McDonald's or other restaurant before noon? Okay, so how much individual hospitality are we allowed? Most commonly, we're invited to households for meal offering, lunch. Lunch in Sri Lanka, here in Sri Lanka, would be a lunchtime meal offering, often in conjunction with an anniversary of a death, whether it's a few days, a few weeks, a few months, a year, or an annual anniversary. People like to invite some monks, a few monks, to the house to offer dana in the names and in memory and in dedication of that good behaviour, dedication of merits to those departed loved ones. That's one way of monks receiving hospitality in someone's home. As far as other hospitality is concerned, how much are we allowed? Specifically, I mean, we are governed by our rules to live as we do, eating just in the morning before noon, as you say there, and where the food is offered, it depends on where you are living. But in your question, you're asking if I was to be invited to another country, a non-Buddhist country. So if someone was to invite me to England now and pay for me to get there, I don't need a visa, but say it was a country where I needed a visa, organise these things, then I could go. In terms of accommodation, we can only stay with a lay person, man, for 3 successive nights. Any more than that is not within the Vinaya rules. So a family, probably it wouldn't be appropriate to live with a husband and wife under the same roof, and daughter under the same roof. No. So in terms of that, it's not specifically disallowed, it's something we probably wouldn't wish to consider. We don't live in such environments. We have renounced the household life. Why would we entertain the idea of going to rejoin the household life? However, if you're inviting a monk to a country to give talks or to perhaps offer the opportunity for people to practice meditation with them, this kind of thing, a retreat, something like that, then you could find suitable accommodation for him in your house, maybe a little separate in a downstairs room, something like that, which is fine. And we'd make exceptions and it would be quite okay for that period of time only. But it isn't really for the sake of hospitality, it's for facilitating that monk whilst he stays to carry out those activities. He's not paying you personally a visit in your house, being your own private monk, living with you for a little while, having fun, joining in with things. As far as going to McDonald's, I don't think it matters which restaurant you take the monk to in terms of in eating before noon, of course, and I would suggest it's not appropriate for monks to go to restaurants where there is alcohol or let's say a lot of alcohol being served. So in a restaurant where there's a bar where people are just going drinking, or a restaurant where most people are having wine with their meals and things like that. I'm not saying that that's against the rules specifically, but it's an inappropriate environment for a monk to be eating. And monks also would generally eat separately from lay people. We don't eat at the dinner table with lay people. Even when we go on invitation for lunch at somebody's house, we're offered the meal, we have our meal, and then afterwards the lay people eat separately. So however many monks it is, we eat together, or if you're alone, you eat alone. We don't go to a restaurant and sit at a table with lay people eating and us eating. Just because we don't want to make the process of eating a recreational activity, as joyful as that is for lay people, and there's nothing wrong with that, part of our practice is to just eat the food mindfully, seeing it for what it is. Patisankha yoniso pindapatam patisevami. We are just reflecting on the need for the fuel to survive another 24-hour day, 24 hours, for the benefit of this practice and living this holy life, not for a social occasion, which it could develop into if you were going, for instance, each day to McDonald's in the morning. Personally also, I mean, I'm a vegetarian, and although McDonald's have vegetarian food, I do find the environment of smelling the burgers all cooking and all of that not overly pleasant to sit and eat in, but that's my own peculiarities and fussiness, and in fact a kilesa. To my detriment, I should be able to just be all accepting of such matters, because it's not forbidden for Buddhists to eat meat. However, we are able, if we have the choice, to choose not to. But if it's all we're offered, then we would need to eat it to survive. I think it's quite easy these days to make arrangements for monks to stay with you or stay somewhere else very simply and very cheaply, without affecting their normal standard of practice. So I hope that answers that question. Okay. So thank you for addressing my question on meat. Oh, so that's just a coincidence that that's come along, and you're just confirming that yes, your local centre is Triratna in England. It is the only sizable sangha locally. You have agonised over attending this because of the controversy regarding, I would just say, the founder of that organisation. I would be grateful for any thoughts on this. Okay, so the Triratna organisation is a kind of semi-secular Buddhist. How can you say semi-secular? That's not correct. It's a Buddhist organisation. The sangha is mainly lay people. They're not monks. The sangha, by definition, is the sangha of ordained bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, monks and nuns, who have renounced worldly life. Now, this does get extended in some cases to the sangha being people who follow that sangha, the teachings of the Buddha, and it gets applied in some circles to all Buddhist practitioners as a sangha being like a body, a fellowship of kalyanamita. But really, technically, in the Pali, it isn't correct. You are upasakas or upasikas, male or female, laymen or laywomen. You are kalyanamita, you are beautiful, noble friends on the path. And if you wish to call yourselves a sangha, that's also okay. But I would suggest we call it sangha with a small s as opposed to sangha with a capital S, because the Arya Sangha, the noble sangha, was the disciples of the Buddha, and their descendants through ordination have become the sangha, the Buddhist monks and nuns of today, in this long lineage. It is a tremendous difference in life to renounce worldly life and to join this sangha. So shouldn't be confused with lay people practicing Buddhism. Of course, the precepts are also very different. We have many more, and a very different way of life, as I was just talking about. But saying that, some organisations have grown out of modernisation. But one thing I'll say is, over the years, things have come and gone. Buddhist, non-Buddhist, religious, non-religious, cults, what would you call them? Other things. Even philosophies have sort of become fashionable, gone out of fashion, disappeared. They change. What hasn't changed, though, is the sangha, the Buddhist sangha. the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and the monks here today are the same and following the same Vinaya, those rules, as were set down in the time of the Buddha, during his time of training when he developed these rules, out of practicality, through his monks doing things that he needed to correct, he made a rule about it. And over 45 years, retuned these rules or refined these rules to the Vinaya as it is today. It has remained unchanged over 2,500 67 years, so many, many years, unchanged, which shows you it works. Where organizations have come and gone, they have changed those rules slightly to accommodate a less strict form of sangha, maybe some lay teachers teaching very well, good teachers, teaching Buddhism, maybe teaching meditation, and offering an alternative. But as you'll see, they have yet to have lasted as long as the original sangha. Now, the Triratna organization is probably one of the largest singular Buddhist organizations worldwide. So it does work, but it has, as you note, had its controversies, which can be mainly attributed to the relaxation of some of even the core precepts, an amendment, a changing of those core precepts for lay people, the 5 precepts. I don't know any more about their interpretation of the Vinaya than that, but when Sangha is confused with lay people and relationships, there can only be room for mistakes to be made, as was and has been proven in that particular organization. As far as my thoughts are concerned with regards to that, if you have a body of people, Kalyanamitta, practicing Buddhism, as long as their views aren't too different from those teachings of the Buddha is your teacher. If we always remember that, it's not too difficult when you go to other organizations, as long as they're keeping to the idea of the precepts, 5 precepts, the 4 Noble Truths, and the Noble Eightfold Path. Any variance on that would become a distraction to your practice, so it's for you to make your own decision. I have visited these Triratna organizations locally to where I used to live in the past and found them very good, useful places to visit and meet other like-minded people. However, I've not really gone further than involving myself with the organization for the simple reason that I went in this direction and became a monk myself. So they don't have ordained monks and nuns, but they do have a process of training where you become teachers, and that's as far as I know about it. So as far as my thoughts and comments are concerned, I have said in my reply no comment with metta. So with loving kindness, I would decline to comment about any controversy with regards to that organization. But it's a very large and currently, I understand, and I think still a successful organization where I'm sure there are very many Kalyanamitta that you can associate with. But always bear in mind the Buddha is our teacher, and one shouldn't try and change what he taught. Bhante, is it okay to suppress feelings? No, it's not okay to suppress feelings. It is better to learn to understand your feelings, establish the root cause of those feelings, and this can be applied to both physical and feelings and mental emotions, to better understand those feelings, and on establishing the cause, identifying the cause, then if possible reduce or eradicate the cause. So if you're having negative emotions, there will be a cause of those negative emotions. So in the 4 Noble Truths we say there's suffering, a cause of suffering, an end of suffering, a path leading to the end of suffering. So if you follow this path, Noble Eightfold Path of Sila, Samadhi, Panya, you will go some way towards establishing the cause of your negative feelings, your suffering and dukkha. And this is what we do. We can do this through the practice of meditation, by just sitting and focusing, but like I spoke of, I think, yesterday, with Vimamsa, we are investigating with the powers of our mind and concentration and energy, investigating these emotions as they arise, stay a while, pass away. These physical feelings as they arise, stay a while, pass away. And we investigate the root cause of those. And by this process we can eliminate that root cause and eliminate the suffering. This is the practice. So don't try and suppress feelings, know feelings. If you feel like crying, cry. Obviously there are certain circumstances where one just has to behave. Yes, we don't laugh when we always want to laugh, or cry when we always want to cry because of social circumstances. But that doesn't even then mean you're suppressing those feelings, as long as you know they're there, waiting to come out. Go to the bathroom, washroom, whatever you call it, have a good laugh, a good cry, and emerge equanimous and in repose, like this, as if nothing was making you laugh or cry. This is okay, because you're experiencing a feeling, but understand where it's coming from and get to the root cause. This is what we can not suppress, but treat. Take medicine for it. So if the root cause of your current sadness is the, let's say, something you feel you want that you cannot have, look at whether it is something you want or if it's something you need. If it's something you need, then it is better that you get that, or go some way towards getting some substitute or availability of help that can satisfy that need. So if you're thirsty, you need water, but you don't necessarily need Coca-Cola or Pepsi. That would just be nice. So you can understand that. This is getting to the root cause of that suffering. Okay, hello, this is kind of similar as well. I'm currently, to the first question. Hello Bhante, I'm currently staying in a hotel in Thailand and I saw there was a monk there. Assume he is staying. Okay, did I hear you a little while ago saying monks are forbidden to stay in hotels? I mentioned it to my girlfriend, she is Thai, and she seemed to think it wasn't okay. Okay, well you say you assume he was staying, he may not have been staying, and one must also think if he was staying, maybe he is unwell and sick, maybe he's visiting a hospital. Where are you staying? Where are you in Thailand? It doesn't say. Say you were in Bangkok or something like that, and he's visiting a hospital, and not as an inpatient, maybe he has to stay in a hotel for that reason. The Vinaya doesn't forbid so much as it's a guideline, these rules. But certain rules, if breached, mean you are no longer a monk, is the worst penalty. Or you need to, in fact, discuss it with your fellow monks, what you have done and why, and they will just say, yeah, okay, as long as you understand that that isn't the way we normally behave, and you make a determination not to do it again, then that's okay. But the Vinaya has the exception for sickness always, so always be very careful with criticism of others, not just monks, but others. In the case of sickness, you might see a monk, say for instance, eating after noon. Maybe he has some medication to take that requires to only be eaten after food, and he's having something for that purpose. Now, of course, I can fully understand these things are open for abuse, but that would be my thoughts there. As far as the rules are concerned, I mean, it shouldn't be the case that a monk should ever be staying in a hotel. I did explain I've had occasion where I've had to do so, where lay people have put my accommodation in a hotel, but I was able to arrange it such that there was a lay person in the room next door, and I was moved a Samanera monk into the room with me so that he could go out ahead of me and make sure all the coast was clear and everything was all okay, so I didn't break any more rules. And to my knowledge and full intention, I wasn't under the same roof as lay people or nuns, so female other occupants. But that's quite a lot to arrange, so it's a lot easier not to stay in a hotel, whether it's the rules or not. And if you're in Thailand, there are so many monasteries. There's surely a monastery where the monk, even if he's sick in fact, could stay. I don't ever have a problem when I go to Thailand and I'm English finding a monastery to stay in. So I just get off the bus and head to where I'm going and walk in to a monastery. They'll generally ask you if you need anything and where are you staying, and you say you don't know. They'll say, do you want to stay here? And usually for a day or a couple of days, that's fine. So that's what I do there, here, anywhere in fact. And that's, so I'd say you've probably got some reason. Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, it's not correct. We cannot stay with lay people, live with lay people. We've renounced household life and we mustn't stay under the same roof as a female, as a monk, and the other way round for a nun. Okay. Are you Dhutanga practitioner? Well, I practice some of the Dhutanga practices. The Dhutanga practices, there are 13 allowable ascetic practices. Not aesthetic, as I sometimes it comes out wrong. Aesthetic, as in pretty nice appearance. Ascetic, as in austere renunciation or austere practices. So an extreme austere practice would be standing on one leg for 15 years. Now there are people, sadhus in India, who do such a thing, or stand with their arm in the air like this for many years, decades, until their arm kind of stays like that. It does something, atrophies or something. Or never sitting down, or lying on beds of nails. All of these things you've heard of, maybe or maybe not. But the Buddha wanted us to follow the middle path. However, he knew that some of us have more kilesas than others. If you're of my age and you've been living in lay life most of your life, as opposed to having been grown up in a monastic environment, as many monks in Asian countries have from a very young age, as young as 8 until my age now, 50s, have always been in a monastery. So they haven't built up through external interaction so much in the way of kilesas as someone who's lived in the lay life for a long time, been married and had children and lived in the world and run businesses and such like. So we have a little bit more hard work ahead of us. And in the old Indian traditions, it's called tapas practice, which is burning away the defilements, burning away these root causes, greed, hatred and delusion, desire really, wanting, craving, as opposed to needing, or wholesome desire of developing wholesome mind states. So the way they burn is out of these austere practices. And Dhutanga practices the Buddha allowed were just 13, because he found that this truly ascetic approach didn't really work, even at burning away these kilesas. He found that finding the substitute of tranquility in practice of sila, samadhi and panya was far more successful. But some monks still require a little bit of extra help with battling their kilesas to keep their discipline by being able to make adhitanas, which is determinations, and some additional further renunciation to this of taking the robes and renouncing household life. And those 13, I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but the ones I take into account all to Colombo. think it's rather nice, the train. I don't notice it unless I'm doing this, so, but when I do notice it, it's rather a nice sound. So, yeah, that was the Gaul to Colombo train. So the Dhutanga practices that I do take upon myself or practice, in addition to our ordinary rules, 227 rules, are that of only eating the food that I get on my alms round, pindapat, that's one extra rule. Only eating one meal, which is another. There are 13 in total. Only eating food from my bowl in one sitting. So all the food that I bring back, after it's been distributed, what remains in my bowl, which to some extent I do choose from the selection, and I have first choice, being the only monk here, but I make sure I've got a healthy-ish balance, because I have to live. But only as far as that's concerned. I don't just say, oh, that mango looks better than that mango. I'll just take a mango like that, if I can try to do that. But it goes in my bowl, and then that's all I eat. So that's another practice. So we have just the one meal a day, or just what we eat on alms round, and just eating from the bowl in one sitting. That's 3 of those 13. What others? I also only wear one set of robes, that's another. So I only have these 3 robes. Some monks you'll find have many robes, and I've got many offered robes over there since I've been here. But I'll only ever wear this one and use this one set of robes. And if one item of this 3 robes, my lower robe, upper robe, outer robe, needs to be replaced, it gets exchanged literally. I make a new determination that this is now my only item robe I'll use hereinafter. That's another. Going on Pindapata every day is perhaps another. And so I think there may be some others. But I wouldn't consider myself a Dhutanga monk as in a real ascetic kind of practitioner, because those also would only literally sleep outside, under a tree, in a cave or an empty building, and wouldn't even consider, as I do, when there's an empty building, moving into it and then having it done up a little, because that tends to happen when you're a monk. People don't want you to live without a bathroom, especially in this modern day and age. You can get away with it in some places, in some parts, but most people will expect you to have a bathroom. Although I've lived many years without a bathroom, toilet I mean when I say bathroom, so I'll let you work the rest of that one out. That's not so socially acceptable here, for instance. So when I move into an empty building, they make sure it's nice, which is why I'm in this temporary accommodation now until my other place is made ready. That seems to be going on a bit. I think it might be for some time. It's the nature of things, but not a problem. So I think that's enough about the Dhutanga practices. I mean, maybe I'll talk about them all one day if I haven't already. I think actually if you look English monk, Dhutanga, there is a talk about it already. Same person, yes, you're asking where is this temple? I think the one you're referring to was a Hindu temple in India. It could have been any one of many. I used to spend a lot of time in those places because there are so many of them, Hindu temples that are empty most of the day, and they were the best place for me to go and sit during the day, to sit and meditate and practice. I'd go to one temple that was more busy to get prasad, to get food. I'd go to another empty temple and spend the rest of the day for my practice, for meditation. Because it's quite hot, you couldn't just stay outside, there wasn't much forest that was very comfortable in the day, there were a lot of ants and things, so I found these temples. So where I was talking in that particular video you refer to could have been any one of many Hindu temples in India, South India. That comment here, I'm not sure what it means. So what's your point? You were referring to one of the short little videos that come on here. I would suggest maybe just watch the full video if you have some time, because that might be what my point is in the full video. They're kind of trailers, those shorts. They're to just give a little indication as to what's in the main video. For some people who don't have time to watch the whole video, they're kind of highlights. which I just randomly pick. It only takes me a minute or two after the video's uploaded to just pick a couple of random spots and make them there as shorts. So they're somewhat out of context, which you have my apologies for if it doesn't make sense. But I don't think about these videos in really any planning way. I don't edit them, and I have no structure to them, other than sometimes it's questions and answers, and sometimes it's just me talking. This week it's been a mixture of everything, again, with no thought, no rehearsal, no editing. It's just what you see is what you get. Right, how am I doing with these? I think I should finish these questions as we're coming also towards the end of the week, my week of these talks anyway, because I like to have a phone break for 2 days, 3 days, 2 days, which I do after I've spoken to you here now, today. For a couple of days, you get a break from me, and I get a break from doing this. As nice as it is, we should all take time away from this routine and concentrate on our practice. Someone's reading the book called Cave in the Snow by Tenzin Palmo. Good, I'm very good, happy you are. It's a wonderful book, not written by her, about her by someone. I read this when I was in England, and her recollection, her recounting of Tumo practice, how you keep warm in the cold, being she was in a cave in the snow, helped me a lot during my winters in British winters when it was -5 and I was living outside in a van. So I learned Tumo practice from that book probably at first. I think I had to research it a bit more, to how you keep warm when it's very cold. But a good book. Not our tradition, as you quite rightly say, but it doesn't matter. We should listen, read these other traditions. Biographies of practitioners, nuns, are very useful. We're all learning from the same teacher, the Buddha, ultimately. So the core teachings remain the same. The Sutta Pitaka may be the same. It's the Vinaya Pitaka, the Abhidharma, which is all considered a little bit differently. And even some of the sutras are interpreted, translated differently. But it's all the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. And some people have mentioned that there are Theravada Buddhist monasteries on the east coast of Australia. Not of the Ajahn Brahm, I will say lineage now, because it is. He's from the Ajahn Chah lineage, though. Kind of got his own thing going also there in Western Australia. But apparently there are Eastern, and I have heard of the list of monks you mentioned here, that's where they are. That's interesting to know. For people whom it's a big country, Australia, on the east coast, you look at the comments, the answers are all there for you. Thank you for doing that and sharing that information with each other. And finally, why do Theravada monks and Buddhists bow 3 times to teachers and to the Buddha? Are they reciting something whilst they bow? Okay, so we bow 3 times to monks, teachers who are monks, senior to us, or if we're lay people, to monks. And when we're bowing to those teachers or monks, we're actually not bowing to the individual, we're bowing to the sangha. So we take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And as monks, we also take refuge of the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. And when given the opportunity in front of a Buddha statue, it can be made of precious metal, not usually, but can be stone, wood, or plastic or fiberglass. It doesn't matter. It's just representative of our teacher, the Buddha, who is long dead. We don't believe this as an effigy that we're worshipping or praying to. We are bowing, we're paying homage, respect to our teacher. For his teachings we call the Dharma, and to the Sangha, which are the lineage of monks and nuns that have followed in his teachings ever since, passing those teachings down to us to this very day, millennia later. So we are just bowing 1 time Buddha, 2 times Dharma, 3 times Sangha. So we are, you say, do you recite something? Not necessarily, but I do, when I'm bowing firstly to the Buddha, to the Sangha, to the Dharma. I also usually say, Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami, taking homage, taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. This is a way of embracing this, or paying this respect, but embracing it back into the body by this physical action. By a physical action, bodily action, we reinforce our mental intention. This is often why actions like this are performed. It isn't a form of worship or praying. It is a form of respect to our teacher, his teachings, and the teachers who followed in his lineage. So this is the purpose of that. And it's also a very useful way. It keeps helps with bringing your awareness through this bodily action to that refuge you have taken in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, reinforcing it each time. It's a very pleasurable thing to do in that respect. And similarly, when people are bowing to monks, they're bowing to what is representative of the Sangha, but also the Dharma and the Buddha above that. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So I hope that explains that, and now we're to the end of those comments and questions for now. I will look forward to receiving more from you. Thank you for all of those that have come in so far and that continue to come in. Thank you for all those who have subscribed to watching this channel and have an interest in the Dharma, or those who are just having an interest in something different. That's okay also. If it's useful, then please use it. I'm very happy it's useful. If it's not, then don't worry too much about it. Let it go and watch something else. But it's great that you've joined us even this time. So be happy and stay well. And until next time, Sukhi Hotu.